The purpose of this presentation is to review the future directions and options for the Birken Volunteer Fire Department. The contents of this slideshow were presented on May the 4th, 2016 at a public meeting. The results of that public meeting indicated that the SLRD needed to provide another option for community members to provide their feedback on this important issue, and so this presentation was put together for web broadcast along with a survey, which will be linked following the presentation. The Regional District's mission is to enhance the quality of life of constituents through the facilitation of regional and community services for the benefit of present and future generations. Electoral Area C has a number of representatives. Russell Mack is the Electoral Area Director. His alternate is Jan Kennett. The communities that those two individuals represent are the Pemberton Meadows, Pemberton Fringe, Mount Currie-Darcy Corridor, Devine, Whistler-Pemberton Corridor, and Lillooet Lake. The SLRD has 87 cost centers or services. The regional district is constrained in how it funds services to its residents. Every service is accounted for separately using a dedicated fund. This means that the regional district cannot move monies between different services the way a municipality can. Each service has to identify its own revenues. In the case of a fire service, the individuals who are within the fire protection area or defined fire service area must pay for the service. Costs are allocated or shared by the members that participate in the service. There are restrictions on tax increases annually, and operating deficits are not allowed. If there is a deficit or deficiency, that is carried forward as an expense to the next year, reducing the amount of money for the service. The fire service in Birken was established in 1999 by Bylaw 684, and it is a contribution service, meaning that the fire service is operated by the Birken Fire Protection Society. The SLRD is merely the mechanism for collecting and funding. All apparatus and equipment are owned by the society, but the fire hall is owned by the SLRD. The SLRD also holds the crown lease on the fire hall property. This map indicates the extent of the fire service area for Birken. The Birken VFD covers 35 square kilometers and is a low call volume department. Current chief is Dave Moldovsky. There are 14 members with at least 7 available to respond at any given time. The equipment possessed by the department are a 1981 Anderson pumper with an 840 gallon per minute Hale pump and 850 gallon reservoir. This is owned by the society. And a 1975 Ford 750 tanker with 1800 gallon tank. This is not currently insured. There is a secondary piece of equipment, which is a utility pickup that was donated by BC Hydro. Back in 2013, the SLRD completed a fire service review, which was a chance for us to look at all of our fire departments and identify issues in relation to coming changes in both the Fire Safety Act and the Minimum Standards Playbook from the Office of the Fire Commissioner. This review identified a number of improvements and updates for all regional district all fire departments within the regional district, including Birken. From August to August 2015, the SLRD contracted with a fire services consultant to begin laying the groundwork for these improvements. That was Darren Oike. He is currently the fire chief of Lillooet, has a long background in fire service. Based on his work, an action plan has been created for each of the fire departments to address immediate priorities identified in the review. In addition to that, significant research on fire service provision models in other regional districts was conducted, looking at bylaws, policies, procedures, etc. The purchase of replacement fire apparatus related to that identified in the service review has been thoroughly researched, and interim agreements as well as declarations of service level have been developed for each of the volunteer fire departments. And this is in reaction to the minimum playbook standards from the Office of the Fire Commissioner, which set minimum standards for training, equipment, etc. The SLRD has implemented a FDM records management system that's available to all fire chiefs to assist them with required record keeping. In addition, the regional district fire departments share the costs of a training database, which allows fire chiefs to train their officers and members up to NFPA 1001. OH&S requirements have been explained to all fire departments, and the fire departments have been assisted in forming OH&S committees where required. For the Birken Fire Department, the immediate priority recommendations in the Fire Service Review were insuring tanker or disposing of it if it's not insurable, acquiring liability insurance covering all firefighters. I believe this has been done. Establish a safety committee, and decline to respond outside of the fire protection area without specific agreements. And this is something that was put forward to all fire departments, mainly because insurance and workers' compensation will not cover a firefighter who is injured or hurt outside the fire protection area. Additional priority recommendations were look at an expansion of the fire protection area and increasing funding, as the current funding has been identified as inadequate. In conjunction with the SLRD, develop a constitution or documented course of action with objectives to assist fire department growth and direction, and this refers back to the action plan which has been developed. Explore a formal response agreement with the Pemberton Fire Department. Birken and Pemberton Fire Departments work together fairly regularly, but that is currently an informal arrangement. And continue training all firefighters to the BC Firefighter Certification Program, which is a basic minimum training standard in the province. Secondary priorities were identified as more public education regarding fire prevention and fire scene safety, removal of some vehicles that were on the fire hall property, and regular hose ladder and SCBA, or self-contained breathing apparatus training. Third priorities were installation of a vehicle exhaust system in the truck bay and WMIS training for all active members. The future options identified by the fire service were several. Remain a fire brigade, and I'll go into in some following slides what FUS insurance benefit is, but currently the fire department in Birken is a life safety department, meaning that residents in the area do not receive a benefit on the cost of fire insurance for their properties. Option 2 was move towards becoming an FUS compliant department and expand fire protection, and moving towards an SLRD operated service. Other options that were not included in the fire service review were form a fire service agreement with Naquaqua and cease operation. The FUS, which was referred to a couple of slides back, is the national body in Canada. It's an insurance industry body that provides a grading index or classification for communities based on the level of fire protection provided by their current fire department. It has two classifications. One is a dwelling protection grade for residential properties, and that'll be the focus of this portion of the presentation. And this is simply what insurers refer to when a resident goes in to purchase fire insurance. They look at the FUS rating or the DPG, and that will give them an indication of how much to charge that resident for fire service, or for fire insurance. The FUS is the only authorized body in Canada that can set these rates. And the grading reflects the community's ability to handle fires in single-family dwellings, again, based on the assessment of the fire underwriter survey. The DPG is broken into 5 sections a scale of 5, with 1 being the best and 5 being considered unprotected. DPG 1 and 2 are very difficult to achieve for rural communities simply because of the resource requirements. These are urban departments in areas that are fully hydranted and have mutual aid agreements in place, etc. Class 5 indicates that fire protection does not meet minimum criteria. When a community improves its DPG, insurance rates may be or are usually reduced, though every insurance company can choose to interpret the DPGs in their own way. The lower the DPG, the larger the discount given in fire insurance rates. There are a number of factors that contribute to determining a DPG, and again, these are 1 and 2 here are related to urban departments. So you can take a look over this slide and see that the requirements to meet DPG 1 and 2 are fairly extensive. They require career firefighters, etc., and a large number of volunteers and a water supply that meets the standards defined by FUS. This slide demonstrates the dwelling protection grades that we're likely to see within a smaller community or a regional district. 3A and 3B, again, require a minimum of 15 volunteers and equipment. 3B is considered semi-protected. This is an area where there is not necessarily hydrants in place. 4, again, semi-protected, requires equipment and the 15 volunteers available to respond at any given time. This slide just refers to some of the language in the DPG criteria, defining what the standard pumper is, water tanker, etc. Standpipes, interestingly enough, are not recognized as water sources under the FUS criteria, even though these may be available to both urban and rural departments. Private water supplies, such as those on farms, may be recognized for fire insurance grading, but the owner-operator of that private water supply must be able to demonstrate the capacity and reliability to the FUS through system drawings and documentation. DPG requires that firefighters should work and reside within a reasonable travel distance to the fire hall. 8-kilometer fire service areas are what is most common, and that is the furthest distance from the hall that will be covered by the same DPG within a fire service area. Absolute minimum of volunteer firefighters considered within the grading system is 10, and maximum age of the apparatus can be considered as 30. However, the most common standard applied by insurers is 15 firefighters available at any given time and a maximum age of equipment at 20 years. This slide indicates some more details about determining DPG and options for meeting water availability for firefighting. And it simply states that you don't necessarily need hydrants in an area, but you do have to have a water delivery system that's available and accessible 24/7, 365, and has been approved or has met FUS standards. Obviously, a dwelling protection grade from the FUS requires that there is a fire hall, appropriate equipment, appropriate communication equipment, an ability for the fire department to replace apparatus as needed, and personal protective equipment for firefighters. All of this requires an annual operating budget. Some more information about DPGs. Just let you review that slide. The key issue or the key message with this slide is that even if a community does not receive an insurance benefit from having a volunteer fire department, there is, of course, life safety and property protection value that goes along with having a non-FUS rated department, such as the one in Birken. This slide simply reviews the impact on insurance premiums per year. So starting at the bottom, number 5 or DPG 5 is considered unprotected, and folks in an unprotected area receive no discount. This is currently the situation for the residents in the Birken fire protection area. DPGs 4 and 3B are considered semi-protected, and people who live in a semi-protected area will receive a 60% plus or minus reduction from the unprotected rate. 3A, 2, and 1 are considered to be protected, and those folks will receive an additional 32% reduction plus or minus from the protected rate. So when we get to talking about the improvements that are required for Birken, and again, the number of options that are going to be presented at the end of this presentation, it's important to look at some of the numbers. So if the community would like to see the fire department in Birken develop towards becoming FUS compliant, that means moving from unprotected or DPG 5 up into the semi-protected DPG 4 or 3B category, The capital budget, so the things required to improve the current service, we're looking at a capital budget of approximately $63,000, and that includes the capital reserves which are currently in place for the Birken Fire Department and resting with the regional district at present. This slide's a little hard to break out, but it gives an indication of what the current cost for the fire brigade is, what the costs associated with a fully functioning FUS compliant department would be, and then this is something that we'll get to at the end of the presentation, an FUS compliant department that receives assistance from the regional district for administration. So you can see that there are some extensive operating budget numbers at the bottom there, and they're quite expensive. The biggest challenges, of course, are not necessarily monetary or equipment related. The biggest challenge in any community like Birken is ensuring that there are sufficient volunteers, both enlisted in the fire department as well as available around the clock to respond to fires. The cost for bringing the Birken VFD up to FUS compliance is extensive, as demonstrated by the previous couple of slides, given that the fire service area, as it currently stands, has a very limited tax base. And once again, a reminder that DPG 1 and 2, which is the dwelling protection grade where residents would receive the most insurance benefit from the presence of a fire department, is likely impossible for Birken or any of the departments operating within the regional district, simply because of the cost and requirements for equipment and personnel. So the Regional District Fire Service Administration is something that the SLRD has come to out of the fire service review and out of working with the fire departments. In response to the new minimum standards playbook from the Office of the Fire Commissioner, the job of a volunteer fire chief has become quite difficult, and if those individuals are also working a full-time job, it becomes much like having two full-time jobs. So in order to assist the volunteer fire departments with growing improvement and meeting the minimum standards identified in the playbook, the SLRD is exploring a regional district fire service administration model. This has a number of features to it. It means that all of the volunteer fire departments in the SLRD would become regional district departments, owned, operated by the regional district. This differs from the current situation in Birken, where the fire department is owned and operated by a society. All chiefs within the regional district would become paid employees of the SLRD, and there's a WCB and insurance cost savings that can be realized by the departments if that happens. When we talk about chiefs becoming paid SLRD employees, most chiefs in the regional district right now currently receive a stipend or an honorarium that would simply be converted over into a wage. But what it means is that there would be direct oversight of the chiefs by the regional district, and again, we'll get into the reasons for that in a minute. A dedicated SLRD staff member would be provided to support the volunteer chiefs with administration tasks like budgeting, scheduling training, and equipment maintenance, etc., as well as ensuring that the chiefs are resourced appropriately to meet the requirements of the provincial standard. Societies would serve an advisory and support role, meaning they would no longer operate the departments, but they would continue to assist with fundraising and supporting the firefighters in their community. Costs for this service would have to be shared amongst all of the regional district fire departments. A new regional district fire service administration bylaw would be introduced that would capture all of the fire departments under one bylaw. There are currently 6 bylaws relating to fire service in the regional district, or the establishment of fire departments. And the Fire Service Administration would be able to facilitate resource sharing between SLRD volunteer fire departments, provide a coordination point for service-wide growth and improvement. The Regional District Fire Service Administration means that there's an opportunity to move towards a unified approach to fire service delivery across the SLRD. Operational autonomy remains with the fire chiefs, meaning the Regional District Fire Service Administrator is not going to provide operational instruction or tell those chiefs how to fight a fire, but that individual would assist with establishing standard operating guidelines, standard procedures, so that a fighter could potentially move from one department in the regional district to another and find that things were done in the same way. It's also a structure that assists departments with change at their own pace. So a regional district administrator would be able to meet fire departments where they are currently and work with them to bring them up to the standard required by the province through providing financial and strategic support. Under the Regional District Fire Service Administration model, all assets of the volunteer fire departments would become SLRD property, and the SLRD would assume responsibility for leases, buildings, equipment maintenance, equipment renewal when it's required to purchase new equipment, etc. An SLRD Fire Chiefs Committee, which has already been struck and has met once in February of 2016 and will meet again likely in the fall of 2016, would be central to this approach. And this is an opportunity for those people who are doing a very tough volunteer job to get together and share challenges and successes and approaches and things like that. The other thing that the regional district believes a fire service administration model would give would be increased sustainability through mutual aid agreements, bulk purchase of consumables and equipment, sharing training opportunities, resources, and reallocating equipment between departments as required or to assist certain services in their growth. The reason for paid fire chiefs under this model is that currently all the departments are responsible for paying their own WCB premiums as well as liability insurance, and this can be a significant portion of the funding that each of these departments receives within any given year. Paid chiefs would be covered under the SLRD's WorkSafe and liability insurance umbrellas as SLRD employees, and this means that they have the ability to supervise direct volunteers, i.e. firefighters, and be covered under that same insurance umbrella, as well as receive that insurance indemnification. And those savings could then be directed towards operational requirements for each department or the cost of the Regional District Fire Service Administration. So the options that are on the table, and I want to stress at this point that this is not the final decision point for the community. This is simply something that the regional district is going through so that we can ascertain the directions of growth that most interest the community. All of these options will require that we come back for future public consultation to confirm, as well as a number of them will require changes to bylaws, etc., and several may even require a vote of the affected residents within the service area. So this is not a final decision point. This is merely an exercise that the regional district is going through to understand how residents of the Birken fire service area feel about their service and would like to see it develop. So this is a summary of the options that are available, and I'll go through in a little more detail now. Following the completion of this slideshow, please return to the page on the SLRD website where you found it, and follow the link through to the survey and fill it out for your particular fire service area, which in this case is Birken. So the first option that's been identified for the Birken Fire Brigade is to essentially retain the same shape and form it has now. This would continue to be operated as a contribution service, with the SLRD simply collecting and dispersing annual tax requisitions. This service would provide exterior-only structural firefighting, so there would be no reduction in fire insurance rates for residents in the area. The annual requisition for this service would be approximately $32,381. That's the money provided each year by the SLRD to the Society from taxes collected. And the annual cost per $100,000 of assessed home value. So if you have a home that's assessed at $100,000, you would pay $56 annually for this service. Obviously, as the price of the home or the assessed value of the home that you're in increases, you would have to do the math to determine your annual contribution. $200,000 would be $112, etc. Option 2 would be to move forward with the Birken Fire Department to try and achieve FUS compliance in either DPG 4 or DPG 3B semi-protected. This model, this option would be operated by the SLRD, meaning that the society would move back to a firefighter support and fundraising role. Again, exterior only. However, there's significant reduction in fire insurance rate for those within the 8-kilometer radius of the hall. And that can potentially be increased to 13 based on discussions with FUS. The requisition for this annually would be $126,470 approximately, meaning an annual cost per $100,000 of assessed home value would be $220. Option 3 is the same as option 2 with the addition of the Regional District Fire Service Administration. Again, this would be operated by the SLRD, and administrative services would be provided to assist the chief officer. Exterior protection only. Again, significant reduction in fire insurance rates within the 8 to 13 kilometer radius of the hall. Requisition for this level of service would be $143,000 and $470 a year, meaning the annual cost per $100,000 of assessed home value would be $249. Option 4, and this is not an indication of the success of the Birken Fire Department or any reflection therein. It's being provided in all of our consultations to all of our residents vis-a-vis their current fire service. Option 4 would be to cease operations. No fire protection would be provided. There would be no reduction in fire insurance rates, and obviously the cost for this would be $0. Again, the options presented here are not final decisions. They are to help the SLRD develop options and narrow down the scope for future consultation. If you have any questions, please do reach out to me. My name is Ryan Wainwright, and I'm the Emergency Program Manager, Interim Fire Services Administrator for the Regional District. My email and phone number are below. Please do take the time, it shouldn't only take a couple of minutes, to fill out the survey related to this presentation. Thank you.